Whether we are back to school in a few days or if you're in the full swing of things, it can be very challenging for most parents at this time of the year. First of all, I want to say that the summer routine is typically much more easygoing because being late for camp or late for grandma's isn't a big deal. But being late for school is frowned upon. The looks we get, the secretary eventually after a few times is like not happy with us. Not to mention the fact that when students go back to school, that means that the traffic ramps back up. I'm assuming because, well, first of all, there's more school buses on the road and just people are being more careful in general. But add to that a lot of parents drive their kids to school. We're just on the road so much more. It's amazing to me how the beginning of the school year increases the stress that most of us are having. And that stress, it just it means that we're going to be frustrated. And I don't know for if how many of you are in this process right now. But even if you're not a parent, I do feel like there's another problem that happens because you get pulled into the back to schools ridiculousness because most bosses start paying hyper attention on like what time people are getting to work and like are the kids disrupting the workflow. And so even if you don't have kids, your boss is paying more attention to your schedule as well. Today I want to talk about how the transition from summer mode to back to school mode can have a huge impact on your diet and what we can do to stay on track to eat properly and keep our body healthy. Now, I think that for most people, you're going to fall into two different camps when it comes to how your summer went, right? Because summer can either sabotage your diet or summer can be a great boost to your diet. I'm going to start with how summer can sabotage our diets. Because for some of us, the summertime is when we allow ourselves to have ice cream, or maybe we're going to eat more fruit because it's in seasons, and so it's like it's tastes better, right, in the summer for some reason. Even if you eat keto versions of ice cream, for example, or keto approved fruits, because we are going to probably do it more often, we could still end up putting weight back on. We could still end up having, well, in my case, it would be joint pain coming back. For other people, it might be PCOS or flare-ups of our skin or all kinds of things that might start to give us trouble again because we've allowed ourselves to increase the amount of fun stuff coming in. Now, maybe you're on vacation and you stopped your diet altogether. Not a great thing to do, but it's possible that you might have just decided that I'm not going to bother, right? I'm not going to ruin my summer by focusing on food. I know that's a way of thinking, a way of looking at things that people have. Another thing that I know happens to some people that could end up causing problems is that the rules at work during the summer are more relaxed. So, for example, you might spend more time at restaurants because your lunch hour is a bit more flex, right? Um, and then just eating out more in general because you have the opportunity more means oftentimes for most of us more weight gain. But then one of the things that I noticed when I was working for at the big company was that when people would eat out in the summer, especially on a terrace when you're outside and enjoying the beautiful sun while you're having lunch, it was much more likely that they would order a beverage or two while they're having lunch. Don't do this during the winter months, but for some reason in the summer months, this is seen as okay behavior. This I don't understand why the summer causes us to feel like we need to have more fun with food, fun with drinks, and this kind of thing, but it absolutely happens. The other thing that I feel people tell me about the summer is this idea that you deserve a break, right? That you shouldn't have to be on a diet over the summer. So, or that you should be able to take time off of your diet over the summer. Maybe you don't not do it the whole time, but you take a few breaks. So back to school becomes the back to healthy for this, if you're in that camp, in that first section of people. Now, this could be very challenging depending on how off the rails you went when you were allowing yourself to not really focus that much on your diet, right? And if we compare this to the people who felt empowered over the summer and they really dialed in their positive eating, right? We have things like the fact that if I'm off work during the summer, so let's say I have the actual complete summer off. For example, I might be a teacher, right? Or just a seasonal worker where during the summer I don't have um I don't have work to do. Then what that's going to do is that in the summer I don't have any temptation, right? I'm in my environment that I choose all the time. So I can really just make sure that no tempting foods are ever around me. I don't have to deal with what my coworkers are eating. I don't have to deal with the company breakfast. Let me just tell you, when I worked again at the company breakfasts were so, I don't even know how we called that breakfast. We'd be eating things like chocolate croissants and muffins. And I mean, sometimes we weren't even muffins. Sometimes we were straight up cupcakes. We would be eating things that were just not healthy for us to have in the first thing in the morning, right? Maybe because it's summer, you were able to go for more walks, right? And so, and I know that whether like just in your normal day, you're going for walks and allowing yourself to have a fun time outside more often, especially if you're off for the whole summer. But even if you're not, a lot of coworkers, now this wasn't me because I wasn't like that, but there were a lot of coworkers who would go for walks at lunchtime, right? And so because they just had, again, that more leeway that we have in the summer for lunch, they would just go for walks at lunchtime. And that means that they're not spending the entire lunchtime just eating and eating and eating, right? Those colleagues that bring in the junk to share, like when you during the normal time of year, they're not around you. You're not tempted by the person who baked cookies last night and then brought them in because they didn't want to eat them all themselves, or whatever birthday person that's having. All these things aren't there over the summer, or at least there might not be there as much for you, depending on whether you're off for the whole summer or not. Can I just point out, most people take their vacation during the summer. Again, an opportunity for you to be away from temptation, an opportunity for you to focus maybe on bringing back some of your gym activities and all the healthy habits that we know we want in our everyday, but somehow we're not engaging every day. You might have been able to create an eating schedule that was based on hunger. That's the other thing that's great about being in a less restricted scenario. I'm thinking about teachers again, like you have lunch when the kids have lunch. But what if you're not hungry at that point again, at a point of time? Now, in the work that I was doing, I did have the flexibility to have lunch when I felt like it. But not all companies work like that. Some companies have a designated lunchtime. I know nurses and fall into that situation where they have to work for a certain period of time, and then they are on lunch at a certain time. And if they don't eat at that point, they have another period of time where they just don't have access. So depending on the kind of work that you're doing, your schedule might not be great for when your hunger actually hits. And you compare this to now I'm on a summer schedule, bit more flexibility, and all of a sudden I'm able to do the good things for my diet. When I think about going back to school, right? Breakfast, lunch, locked in, but also being stuck in traffic at the beginning and end of your day. So even if I wanted to have breakfast and I would have been hungry at breakfast time, do I have time to stop and have breakfast? All of these things lead to stress, wellness warrior. And when you're stressed, your body is just not going to do as well as it can do when you're feeling relaxed. That's just for sure. And that brings me back to this other idea of the summer vibe, right? The summer is a relaxed and fun time. Even if we're working through the whole summer, the fact that when you get off work, it's still warm and bright outside. You know how many times I finish work and then I leave? So I got to work, it was dark. And then I finish work and I'm going home and it's dark. That is not a recipe for a happy version of me, wellness warrior. But when you're on vacation time, so summertime hours, because you might not be on vacation, but when you're on summertime hours, you get to work and it's starting to be bright. And then you leave work and it's still bright enough that you could, again, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, go to see friends, and you don't feel like you're disturbing them and their kids' bedtime routine, or that you're disrupting your own kids' bedtime routine. So I feel like the summer vibe is just so different. One of the problems that we see when we go back to school is that our kids, they want to stay in that summer vibe. They like how calm and relaxed mom and dad are. And then to have us go back to worrying about what time they go to bed, worrying about what time they've had supper and breakfast, and all the worrying about schoolwork, right? Like even your kids, depending on like what your age is and like stage of the game, sometimes kids don't want to be back to school because they have all that homework that they have to look forward to. Maybe they don't, they like the lunches that you could make for them while they were home because they were meals and whatever. Now they're back to these packed lunches, and we're fighting with our kids about taking whatever we find healthy for them to take to school. Or maybe even fighting with them because they want to take junk to school and we don't want them to take junk to school. Well, I'm sorry. There's so many different reasons why our kids are going to struggle. And then that their struggling causes us to struggle. Their complaining causes us to be stressed. Those cooperative kids that were happy to go off to camp are no longer being cooperative. So back to school, from where I'm sitting, is a back to temptation, and it's a back to frustration where you end up self-soothing with food. Not good at all for our health. I'm curious, did I miss anything in my list? Like, is there more to it? Can you think of other reasons that back to school is a bad time? Let me take a look at the chat, and if you can think of another reason why back to school is a bad time, you can let me know here. But I want to say, first of all, good morning to Pat. Hi there. How you doing, sweetheart? Um, what you said, except for the fact that I somewhat the idea of setting my alarm to 6:30 again. I should be fine. Getting up early means I'm hungry earlier though. Yeah, so that wanting to start that food routine early. And am I actually hungry earlier? That's one of the things I want to point out, Wellness Warrior. If you were hungry earlier, your body would wake you up, right? It would wake you up to go get food. A lot of the time, that's why our kids wake up, right? They're hungry. They wake up. They're like, first things like, mommy, I want some food. I remember my kids, right? So like sometimes we have to also just ask ourselves, am I actually hungry earlier, or am I up, and then now I'm thinking about food. So it's a question mark for all of us to think about. So adding some eggs, adding some eggs and bacon at lunch might be a temporary option. That's an interesting option, and it's an interesting solution. That's a healthy solution. So I like that. Good morning. This is Chris. How can one better tell the difference between real hunger versus a mental or emotional need to want to eat something? Thanks. Chris, you know what? That's an interesting question. When we are emotionally hungry, one of the things that I've noticed is something as simple as drinking some water and solving the thing that made us upset allows the hunger to go away. One of the things that's really cool about how the body functions is if I'm actually hungry, the hunger isn't just going to go away. And if I'm actually hungry, so my body needs me to input something like it's not going to be able to get what it needs just from me. That's why it's sending me out to get food. So even though I will tap into some energy on board, the hunger is going to come back, and it's going to come back relatively quickly. Hello, Lynn. Schools are feeding our kids crap. Yes, they are. Thanks for chiming in with that. And yeah, so definitely something that we for sure um, are going to want to be paying more attention to. So getting back to this idea. So after 6 years of sticking to my healthy eating plan, Wellness Warrior, I've learned a few things that can help you to stay on track. So I want to run through some of these things with you. The first thing is that cheat meals, days off, rewards for having lost 5 pounds, whatever you want to call them, reasons that we give ourselves to eat off plan only ever lead to frustration. Every single time that I've eaten for fun since learning about the impact of food on my health, I've regretted it. Every single time. We have a tendency to distract ourselves when we're bored or unhappy. Right? We use food as a fun diversion, distraction. But what we're ignoring is that everything we put in our mouth, our body has to manage. So, as fun as it would be to have a rainbow of beautiful glitter that would go off every time I press the button, just psh, all over, just like beautiful. If 5 seconds after pressing that button, having that rainbow go off, I had to turn around and clean up that glitter, I start hesitating to press the button, right? We don't realize that every time we eat garbage, our body has to clean it up 5 seconds later. So you think about that glitter that's going to be in the carpet, right? It's going to be all the little crevices in my keyboard, right? In the little, right, in inside my microphone, in my hair. I have to clean that up every single time I press that button. Trust me, Wellness Warrior, I wouldn't be pressing that button. And I've learned and I realized that my body wasn't happy with the mess that I was making. And it was screaming at me, right? Screaming at me through joint pain. It was screaming at me through excess weight. And in my family, their bodies scream at them with eczema or asthma. How does your body scream at you, Wellness Warrior? What is your body doing? Put it in the chat. I'm curious. Because I think that if we stop and think about it, we'll see that our body is telling us when we're doing the wrong thing. We don't listen. Why don't we listen? I'm not 100% sure. But we don't listen. Now, the second thing that I've learned over the past 6 years is that avoiding a problem and solving it are two very different things. I used to do all kinds of shenanigans to avoid eating chocolate. right? So that I could, well, lose a bit of weight so that I could feel like I was in control, so that like because I honestly used to call myself a chocoholic years ago because I could see clearly that I wasn't managing chocolate. It like if I touched it, I ate all of it. So I would force myself to take breaks. I'd make all kinds of rules for myself about when I was allowed to have chocolate, how much, like all these things. I played all kinds of mental games with myself so that I would diminish the amount of chocolate I ate. To some extent, it worked because during the time that I was playing those games with myself, I actually ate less chocolate. And sometimes I would even not have any. And when I was able to not have any, so proud of myself. Like so even the fact that I found that something to be proud of, again, tells you how much chocolate I was actually eating. But I would eat other things that had chocolate in it. So in my definition of not eating chocolate, it was I wasn't eating chocolate bars or straight up chocolate, right? But if I had a chocolate chip cookie, that didn't count. If I had um, chocolate chip ice cream, that didn't count. If I had like chocolate cake, that didn't count. It was just chocolate bars. Do we see the problem? Right? Cookies and cake and granola bars, those are all okay. Like I needed to accept that just because it's not a chocolate bar, it doesn't mean that it's not doing the similar kind of, first of all, pulling on me because I still was getting that little flavor of chocolate. So mentally, I'm still getting a hit of it. But second of all, the damage that it was still doing to my body, right? Chocolate was definitely, so chocolate bars were definitely my kryptonite. But then if I couldn't get a chocolate bar, I was willing to have anything that was chocolate-ish. What was really interesting was that I could avoid chocolate for a while, but inevitably, so chocolate bars, it would make its way back into my life. And I feel like that was because I wasn't actually ever solving the problem. I needed to accept that when chocolate was actually in front of me, I lost all control. That's why I needed these avoidance tricks to stop myself from eating it. But how long can I keep a trick going? Clearly not forever, right? And that's because in my own head, I know I'm tricking myself. I know I'm telling myself a temporary something. And so, because the solution that I was giving myself was temporary, oh, I'm not going to do this for a week, or I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to, those are temporary answers. Those are not full fledged, this is solving the problem answers. But today, I haven't had chocolate in 5 years, give or take a month. No chocolate. And that's because I actually decided to solve the problem. I was able to look realistically at what was happening and accept that chocolate was causing my weight to rise. Chocolate was causing my insulin to be out of control. Chocolate was causing physical damage to my body, right? Because chocolate is garbage and I don't have any control over it, like at all. Now, there were other things that I had not great control over, cookies, ice cream, cake, blah, blah, but I had better control over them than I had over chocolate. I had to really decide that because I don't have any control over this, even trying to keep 90% chocolate, 100% chocolate in my diet, for me, did not make any sense. And I decided that to be healthy, I would only eat healthy food. And therefore, chocolate really didn't have a place in my diet. So no more chocolate bars. They were gone. So this point leads nicely into the third thing that I learned right at the beginning of the 6 years of eating healthy. And I'm going to tell you that this thing that I learned was ridiculously embarrassing to me. But I'm going to share it because I want you to do better than me. I want your journey to be faster than mine. And I want the next generation to be better educated than I was. Okay. The thing that I learned that totally changed everything that I do with food today and the fact that I eat healthy all the time was that I learned that I was addicted to sugar. After decades of fighting with my weight and being confused about why I couldn't lose weight on a low fat diet, I did a low carbohydrate diet and lived withdrawal, Wellness Warrior. That stupid keto flu stupidity that it's not keto flu. It is withdrawal. Can I tell you how angry, aggravated, frustrated, like, first of all, that we keep calling withdrawal keto flu makes me angry, because if we don't call it by the right word, then people don't understand what they just fought through if they get to the other side. And they will allow garbage back into their life because they don't understand that no, it wasn't a flu, it was withdrawal. Now, I want to tell you before I go on in this point, I want to tell you something about me. I grew up understanding what addiction was. Luckily for us, in the school that I went to, very young, they explained it in one of our classes. I think it was in grade 4, that there are certain substances that you can drink or take otherwise that will cause you to not be able to control how much of them you have after a certain threshold. And so that was in grade 4, I think. It was in elementary school for sure. And that first touch point helped me to understand why I don't want that. In high school, I then saw it with my own eyes. Friends using things, losing control, being sick. And I was like, I'm not interested in any part of this. And so for the remainder of my life, I was very, very particular about what I would use. So 1 drink, 2 drinks, fine. Drinking to be not able to be coherent, no, to me that was just ridiculous. So can I tell you that when I took my carbohydrates, and I didn't even get down to 20, by the way, Wellness Warrior. When I took them down to like between 50 and 70 is where I think I landed, and was living withdrawal, angry and embarrassed, because I always told myself that the one thing that I would be is a not addicted person. And here I was finding out that I had actually been addicted to something. Wellness Warrior, it is not possible to have withdrawal unless you have some type of addiction. It is not possible. And the one that so that's the thing I took out of my diet, right? Well, I didn't really take sugar all the way out of my diet. Actually, let me just be careful. I'm saying I took sugar out of my diet. Because yes, I did live withdrawal from taking sugar out of my diet, but I didn't take it all the way. I just reduced it. So this is the other piece of the puzzle, is that we can't take sugar all the way out of our body. It's not actually possible. Our body makes sugar. The thing that we don't need to do that we keep doing that messes with us is we keep eating it. My body makes all the sugar that I ever need. I don't need to eat any sugar. So when I take in sugar, my body starts freaking out and trying to manage the sugar that I just brought in. And that's whether you're doing regular standard American diet, that's whether you're doing keto diet, or that's whether you're doing carnivore and letting things in like honey or fruits if you do still eat fruits once in a blue moon on your carnivore diet. Your body will react, right? You push the button and the glitter, and then you got to clean up. If you're struggling with your weight and have not tracked how much sugar you're eating, you may be surprised when you check. So let me tell you a little bit about April 2018 when I tracked my normal day of eating. I started on the 18th and I tracked for 3 days, I believe, while I was prepping to get all the junk out of my life. But I wanted to know how much sugar, where was I starting? I wanted to know. And 350 to 450 grams over those 3 days. That's what I was eating. Can I point out that prior to doing this check-in, I had already been starting my process of trying not to gain any more weight. And I was trying to lose because I really thought that my problem that I was having was a weight problem. So that means that 350, 450 grams of carbs that I was eating was me not having any cookies, ice creams, chips, chocolate bar. Like those 3 days, I only ate food how I used to define it. And I was sincerely in shock. And now, if I would have added the chocolate bars and the cookies and the ice cream that I would have normally had when I wasn't trying to lose weight, it scares me to think what the number would have been. And I haven't actually ever taken the time to like say, oh, this is how much ice cream I used to have. How much was it in terms of carbs? I can guesstimate when it comes to the chocolate bars because 2 chocolate bars, right? You can guesstimate 2 granola bars, 2, you're just adding always. But like the ice cream scares me. The cereal scares me. Although I know the answer to that because I did eat cereal when I was doing that. The cookies scare me. Like we don't eat the serving size, most of us adults. We don't eat the serving size. Right? So we're adding, I would have had to add that on top of my 350, 450 number. So let's add it on top of the 450. The number would have been insane. What does that do for me today? Like knowing all of that information, how does that help me today? Today, I never cheat on my diet because that would just be cheating on my health. Why would I want to do that? Right? That's a bad idea. So no cheat meals. No, it's my birthday, so therefore I'm eating this thing that I know is not good for me. If I know it's not good for me, I do not eat it. If I eat something, it's because I think it's okay to eat. That's it. The other thing I do for myself right now is I always, and I've done this, I will say I do it right now more, but I've always kind of done it, is I always focus on solving my life problems. If something is bothering me in my life, I try to solve it. I try to solve it quickly now. So I would say in the history of being me, I would always try to solve it, but sometimes I would let it linger and I would wait and I would this and I would that. And nope, now I'm on it. Why? I don't want to be tempted. Another little story for you. When I started keto, before I understood this piece of the puzzle, sometimes I would get upset at work. Sometimes I would get upset in my house. I have kids and I have a spouse, so life. And when I would be driving to work, I pass a store that sells nuts. I already had the I don't eat anything that isn't healthy. And I thought nuts were healthy at that point in time. And sometimes what I would find myself doing is stopping in and buying nuts. But then I would end up like, so I buy more than a serving because you're buying nuts. But then I would end up eating more than a serving because I was so upset, right? I was self-soothing with nuts. And you know what the truth is, wellness warrior? We can self-soothe with any food, which means that we can overeat any food. So it's harder to overeat meat with its accompanying fat, but it's still possible to do. If you are a high volume eater, yes, you will be able to self-soothe with food and overdo it. So on the one hand, where some people say, whoa, like when I'm upset, instead of eating cookies, I'll eat, a burger patty. It's better, but is it the right thing to do? Or should I save eating for when my body asks me for nourishment or energy, right? Because when my body asks me for it, it's looking for building blocks. When my body asks me for it, it's looking for energy. When I eat because I'm upset, it has nothing to do with that. And the unfortunate problem is extra energy coming in that my body didn't ask for still needs to get managed. I think that sometimes when people are talking about protein getting turned into carbs, it's because we still do that. We eat when we're not hungry, and our body clearly must do something. Every time something comes in, your body has to do something with it. What is it doing with it? Something positive? Something negative? If my body didn't ask me for food, or if I'm eating because emotional and that makes me feel space for food, but it's not real hunger, my body will be trapped into storing that as fat or using it, if it's protein, turning some of it into sugar so it can get used, and all the things that my body is going to do absolutely to keep me safe, but it's still not towards the healthy goal that I have for myself. The other thing that I do religiously right now is I'm very conscious of the fact that I have a problem with sugar. Not had, I have. The same way that if you have a drinking problem, 6 years from now, if you drink, so let's say you get under control, 6 years from now, you drink, it'll come back. I'm 6 years in, and if I start eating some sugary stuff, it'll come back. I have a problem with sugar. I've currently decided to be carnivore, but even when I was keto, I kept my carb intake under 10, not 20, 10. And I didn't even have carbs every single day. Why? My body does not need carbohydrates every single day. My body makes all the carbohydrates that I need. I actually never need to eat any because that piece of information that Dr. Fung reminded me of is burned into my brain. Even when I was doing keto in those last 2 years, I was not having carbohydrates every day because that was unnecessary. What are you doing, Wellness Warrior? Are you eating things that you know you don't need to eat because they're fun? Right? Because if you're doing that, you could be doing damage and not even realizing it. Now, keeping my carbs under 10 grams per day respected what my body was trying to tell me the whole time, right? The pain, the inflammation, the weight gain. My body was trying to tell me the entire time there's too much coming in. Where else can we put it? We are struggling to put it somewhere where it's safe and not harming you. And so it started to harm me. A little bit of fruit in season 500 years ago when we didn't have fridges full of fruit. was not doing to our body what fridges full of fruit and ice cream and cookies and all the things that we could be eating today is doing. We need to understand that our body wants us to be healthy. It does not want the sickness that we have. You can eat healthy every single day, Wellness Warrior. And I want your back to school to be smooth, just a nice, smooth transition. And so I'm encouraging you to take note of these 3 tips and engage with them every single day, right? We do better when we plan to do better. You can rewatch this video and like write them down. We do better when we plan to do better. And I want all of us doing better. I want to take a moment to thank the supporters of the channel because you actually give me the time to do the research and find interesting topics to talk about. So thank you very much to all the channel supporters. If you guys want to become a channel supporter, links are down in the description. I have a series of videos about how you can stick to keto with 3 easy tips that I'm going to link here and in the description. It's already there that you can check out after the Q&A, of course. Let me get back to the comments. So Chris says, thanks for answering. That is a good point. Perhaps there's some deeper things I need to address with myself that's causing the want to eat something at that moment. You know, Chris, a lot of the time, what ends up happening for us is that we're living our life. Something frustrating, annoying, irritating happens. Even just being bored can cause this to happen, right? That we push that irritation aside and we just keep moving forward and don't realize that by pushing the irritation aside, we've now opened this negative in our body and it's asking us to feel better. And the truth is, eating sugary, carbagey stupidities actually helps us to feel better. Like that's the truth that we have to accept. The dopamine pathway, the serotonin pathway, the cannabinoid pathway, and the opioid pathway all react to sugar. And so if you're eating these things, yeah, you're going to feel better for a moment. The big strategy that food companies know about that us normal people don't realize is that as we eat those things, the effect only lasts so long. So I'm going to eat something, I'm going to feel better. Oh, okay, thank goodness. But then the effect wears off. That thing is still bothering me, right? If I'm bored, I'm still bored. If I'm angry at my spouse and we haven't discussed it, I'm still angry. And so I want to eat more. And that's exactly what's happened with me and the nuts. I would have them there. I would eat some. I would get on with my day. I would get distracted, whatever. And then at some point, something else would annoy me. And then, oh, the nuts are there. And I would self-soothe again. And it was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And of course, if you do that enough times, well, then we have the new problem of I'm triggered again. And now, so I'm back in my loop of overeating sugar, harming my health, not feeling great, and frustrated with myself because I didn't need to be in this situation. Yeah, I did understand that. Yeah. Hello, Laura N. How are you doing? And you said society goes out of its way to promote sweets. In the local news this morning, they chatted about how great it was that Cinnabon collaborated with Warhead Candies to make these sugary blue concoctions. Whoa. Okay. You know, you're absolutely right. It goes out of its way to promote. Every time we turn around, there's another commercial. even for even in scenarios where you would think that they would be advertising not sugary junk stuff, they are. The example that comes to me is that article I read with that mother that was irate that during the Super Bowl, so theoretically a bunch of adults watching football, they were advertising candy. So, we're going to take the twofold problem. The assumption being that the candy was aimed at the children because it was cartoon characters dancing around and whatever. Okay. But second problem is that adults eat candy, which is the other thing that why do we eat candy? As adult, why do we feed our children candy? As adults, we know that there's nothing nutritive about candy. The fact that Cinnabon and Warheads collaborate to create anything, those are two non-nutritive things coming together. Okay, terrific for them, but why do we buy it, Wellness Warrior? And we buy it because we still have this ridiculous idea in our head that we are supposed to be treated, and that the treat should be something that tastes sweet. And it just blows my mind because we know that these things are not healthy. Not that we think, not that we're guessing. We know that these things are not healthy. How do we know that? Well, years of life experience. You eat candy, you're more likely to get cavities. You eat candy and you're more likely to be hyper. You eat candy and you're more likely to gain weight. You eat candy and you're more likely to have skin problems. Like, just, I'm not talking about looking at research. I'm talking about looking at your individual you. How many times I ate candy and it cut the heck out of my tongue. Like, I couldn't believe, like, the last time I had candy was because of that, because my body actually just started creating cuts on my tongue. What else can it do? And it's not even like I had a lot. One candy. So I think my body was just like, what else can we do to get this crazy person to stop giving us this garbage? And it just started cutting up my tongue. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, you found the thing. You found the thing. But why did it take that, Wellness Warrior? I don't know. I don't know why it took that. And that doesn't make sense either, that it takes us being harmed, not just a little bit of annoyance, not a little bit of, we have to be harmed before we will stop ingesting the thing that is not helping us in any way whatsoever. I don't get it, but this is what we do. I watched the interview with Casey and Callie. Casey explains how tobacco companies bought food processing companies, yep, and moved their scientists to make food as addictive as cigarettes. Yeah, I feel like when the companies took over, I'm not 100% sure when it first started, because I think that the cereal companies in 1950s, when they really started to pump sugar into their cereal, had already begun to figure out that sugar was a driving factor that could get people to eat their stuff. But for sure, when tobacco took over, and now that sugar, salt, fat combination, and the what's the word? Hyper palatable, right? And that bliss point, all these words that they came up with were like, basically, can we get people to eat until they explode? Is what that means, right? The bliss point. You're just gonna eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat until your body explodes. And the fact that that's what they want us to do, Wellness Word, does anybody find that gross? That this company isn't. So again, we think we're having a treat. Behind the scenes, they're creating a substance that when we eat it, we can't stop eating it. That throws me way back to grade 4, when the teacher told us that there's certain substances that when you start taking them, you can't stop. It's out of your control. And then you're going to be in big trouble because your life is going to go nowhere fast. That's the same conversation, Wellness Warrior. It's somehow we are ignoring it. Why? Why? Why are we ignoring it? Why do we let our children who don't have money and they can't go buy the stuff? Why do we buy this garbage for them, Wellness Warrior? We need to see the writing on the wall. Food companies that are doing this, so the food companies that are creating these products, and I mean, which company doesn't have the correct salt, sugar, fat scenario going on? Because again, there seems to be sometimes sugar in things that you wouldn't think would have sugar. There seems sometimes to be fat in things that you wouldn't think has fat. Not everything. For example, pasta doesn't seem to have fat in it. I don't recall that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is fat in pasta. But when I look at the nutrition information, I don't remember seeing fat as a big player in that ingredient. But the sauce you put on it has fat, usually. So, like, it's in combination. Most people don't just eat pasta, right? Cereal might not have a high amount of fat in it, but when you pour that milk on it, all of a sudden, so I feel like it's so there that we don't even realize how much it's there. And it's only when you pause and start asking these questions that we really start to understand that every single processed food that we are eating has this combination going on in one way or another, whether we add the milk after the fact or add the sauce after the fact or however, but they know how we're going to have this thing, and they know like whatever, how we combine, right? So frustrating. Yes. He said the RGJR Nabisco buyout pushed it forward. Yeah. I don't have all the details on that story. I have heard the story before. And regardless of how we got here, one thing, and I had a video last week about some of this and the fact that they use science, both physical chemistry science, but also psychological science to mess with us on purpose. Wellness Warrior. On purpose. This is not accidental. This is, how can we figure out a way to get people to eat more, even though people are obese, even though people are sick? And then we feed into the other systems, right? Because then we get into the medical system or the diet world system or the workout world system, right? No matter which way you look. So, does anybody find it odd that one brand, pick whatever brand you want, has junk food, diet food, and statedly healthy food that's not healthy, but statedly healthy food, right? So they're going to have their brand of diet food that's low in whatever you want it to be low in. If you want it to be low in carb, they're going to make a low carb version. You want it to be low in fat, they're going to make a low fat version. If you want the regular version, there it is. And then if you want a healthy version, they're going to make one that's all natural. What is that word? I can't put my finger on. That means that like it was farmed properly. Organic, and right. Honestly, and none of these things are any of these things. They're all the same garbage, just in a different packaging, because they're all formulated in a way, whether it's the organic healthy version, the diet version, or the regular version, that when you eat one, you want to eat more than one. They're all formulated the same way. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? Because they're not satisfied with you just having one. They want you to overeat it so that profits this year are more than they were last year, and that next year's profits beat those of all the previous years. Do we even see the problem with the fact that it's more about bigger and bigger profits? To who? Do we ever stop and ask to who? It's not like if the people working at these companies are living such big lives at the lower level. All of the money is being gathered by this very small 5% at the very top of this pyramid. And we are the ones feeding it. We are the ones who are sick. We are the ones that are in the hospital. We are the ones that are suffering on the weekends. And a lot of the time, what we don't even know is that a lot of the big execs in these companies do not eat their own product because they know how dangerous these products are. A lot of the scientists that work in the labs that help create these products do not eat them because why? They know how dangerous these products are for your health, for your mental health, for your body. If you knew what you now know with your daughter when she was younger, how would you have gotten her off carbs differently? She never would have been on them, sing it. My daughter fought me to eat fruit. She didn't want it. She was so would she have been on some? Probably she would have been on vegetables. She always loved, but my daughter was that kid where you're like, what cereal? What Weetabix? Plain oatmeal? Like that, those were the things that she actually gravitated towards. Plain, bland, like cucumbers, like just plain, bland. All the sweet stuff, she would push it away, push it away, push it away. She didn't like it. But we just kept putting it in front of her and putting it in front of her as, we were told, oh, she'll eat it eventually. She'll eat it. And she ate it eventually. You know why? Because at some point, little kids get into a mindset that us adults have. We want to be like everybody else. Small children don't care about that. They just want to play and have fun and whatever. But as you get older, you start to want to be part of the pack, part of the crowd, right? Like we are social beings. And the more we understand about socializing, then the more we want to be like the people we're around. So, had I not pushed this idea of fruits are healthy, and especially I pushed it even more so because I hated fruit and I wanted her to be healthier than me. Again, ah, ah. But had I known, I would not have pushed this idea of fruit. I would have allowed her to eat meat, and that's what she did eat meat, and she liked meat. I would have just let her eat meat, and when she's done eating, whatever, go play. And if I was doing it too, if my household was just like that, she would have been fine. She would have been fine. So it's very, very frustrating to me because she would have grown up understanding. First of all, it wouldn't have just been just like that. I would have also taught her about what sugar does and why her friends can't stop eating it. And my daughter's a super smart person, right? Like she is so responsible when it comes to drinking because, again, I taught her about that. And she's super responsible. And I think she would have been just as responsible with food had I been able to teach it to her before she was stuck in the same loop that I was stuck in. And now it's going to be up to her to get to it at her pace, right? And I know she's going to get at it because she's smart. I don't have any concerns that she will get to the place that I got to. I worry what place she'll get to. That's just reality. But, everybody has to live their trajectory. And I did the best I could do with the information I had at the time. Now I have new information. Now she has new information. I at 1000% believe that any grandchildren that I will get from her will have a different way of eating than she and I had, because I do think that she sees the value in what it did to me. And again, she has modified many things. She's nowhere near eating the way she used to, but again, there's work to be done. And I take some responsibility for that. Interesting, Pat. I'm glad you learned that data. Chris, your videos take me back to when I was a kid and I learned the tooth fairy wasn't real. This information is life-changing. A little joke, but it's true. I can't see things the same. Chris, the truth of the matter is the tooth fairy and Santa Claus story, at least were positive stories that they were telling us to like, but you're right. It's the same kind of idea. Why do we need our kids to believe in something fake? Why aren't Why isn't believing in your parents and the goodness of society and the positive of what we can potentially be doing on this planet enough, right? Like we spend so much time doing not what we should be doing rather than doing what could be beneficial to the planet and beneficial to more people. So I hope that these videos, well, share the video if what I say is your reality. I hope that these videos help people to see that there's hope, that if I change what I'm eating, I can get my body back. If I change what I'm eating, I can get my health back. If I change what I'm eating, I can go far into the future, healthier, stronger, more mentally clear, and enjoy my life. And if any of my videos make you feel that way, please share them because that's the point of these videos. I want us all to do better. I have no children. Whew. Take my hat off to parents, but I bet sugary cereal, etc., is out of guilt. School is hard. How does parents not give their kids treats? Very sad. No pun. You know what? Sing it. I will be the first one, hand to God, to say that I was giving my daughter cereals that I actually thought were healthy because the package said they were healthy. So I wasn't giving her cereal out of guilt. And as a matter of fact, I was not even buying like fun cereals until I realized all the damn cereals were the same. So it didn't matter. Like I remember like we would always, well, again, we have twofold because my daughter does kind of like healthy, or did kind of like healthy cereals anyway. So my, like, again, my daughter was a Weetabix kid, plain Cheerios at the beginning, um, uh, oatmeal, like plain oatmeal, and what was the other one that she liked a lot? Oh, there was another cereal that she liked a lot too. Oh, cornflakes, like these plain bland cereals. It was just like but she liked them. But like over time, it's like when they became more flavorful, I will say, because then she started having like honey bunches of oats. And so all these other things came as time progressed. Today, I don't even care. Whatever cereal she asked for, they're all the same. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. So like I've let go of this idea that there's a healthier cereal and that they're all the same. The carbohydrate count, when you turn it over and look at how much sugar is in a serving of X versus a serving of Y, there's no difference. So I don't even bother about that anymore. But I can definitely tell you, Sing It, that it was not because of guilt. As a matter of fact, none of the things that I gave my daughter for school lunches were about guilt either. And again, as she did complain, I was a strange parent because I fed her based on what I thought was healthy. And I knew full well that when she got to my mom's place, my mom, once she got past the age of 4, where she was allowed to have treats, I knew my mom would give her a treat. So I focused her at school what I thought was healthy because my understanding was healthier meals equaled learned better. And so that was my focus for her. I wanted her to learn to the best of her ability. So that's how I fed her. She had hot lunches her entire school career, elementary school and high school, hot lunches and what I thought were healthy snacks. And she had any junk that she was going to have after she got home because at that point she's not learning anymore. And I felt like, okay, again, the programming worked, right? Oh, when she gets home she can have junk because it doesn't matter. It still mattered. I just didn't know how much it mattered. Oh, Pat, I know. I'm probably said a million things that made you make that noise. Or I read a million comments that made you make that noise. So hard to go to the market with kids and see that the aisles by the register is full of sweets and junk food. Again, I'm not trying to dunk on parents. I'm really not. I think that our kids react in stores the way that we've allowed them to understand they're allowed to react in stores. I remember going shopping with my parents and we knew not to misbehave because the whatever treat that they might have bought us just wouldn't be in the cart. It's like if I cried for that, then I don't get whatever they were going to buy me. And that was just reality. And in our house, we didn't have many treats. So I wasn't going to risk that. But my daughter was the same story. Like, if you want something, you ask nicely. I'm either going to give it or I'm not. Or I'll make you trade. Like, I was buying this if you want that. Like, I mean, again, my house wasn't overrun with junk food, but there was junk food. But at the same time, she didn't cry for it either. So it's like, I feel my daughter was in a special scenario because up until 4, she really didn't have access the way other kids do. And she rejected the fruit. And my pediatrician said, when she's ready, she'll eat it. So I didn't fight her for that. I just offered it, offered it, offered it. And I believe that I remember, not that I believe, she was around 6 years old when the story started to change. And that's when she started school, right? When she was like in real school. And that's when the story started to change, where she started to see what her friends were eating and whatever. And the stories just slowly, slowly, slowly started to change. But that's why I think that there's so much of this we are learning to eat these things, not that our body wants these things per se. Because again, up until 6 years old, so grade 1, she didn't care. She wanted her foods, and they were bland, and she liked them that way. And the creeping in of these things only really started around 6 years old. So I think that unfortunately, so the flip side of that coin is unfortunately, when you're not able to control your children in the store, or you feel guilty and you give in to your kids in the store, that's not about the kids. If you're giving in out of guilt, that's out of us giving in out of guilt. And we have to learn how to not do that, right? We need to learn how to give our kids what's healthiest for them rather than trying to give them what looks fun for them, even though we know it's not healthy, or what's easier, even though we know it's not healthy, right? So like, and I think that was another thing that I remember now, is that I had like even rules about when can junk food start during the day, right? Like there was a rule: there's no junk food before noon. And if you asked me for junk food before noon, you couldn't have it like for another 2 hours or something like that. Like, don't ask me for anything before noon. So like, I feel like, and that was an easier remembering for a kid, because that meant I can only ask for it after lunch, right? So I feel like there's certain things that if we just teach our kids the best to our ability and they're able to do it, then any of this stuff that we know today, they would be able to do it, right? Because our kids are super smart. I mean, just think about this for 5 seconds. All the scientists, all the surgeons, all the pilots, all the musicians, all the mathematicians, like they were children at one point. So our children are going to grow up to be this next generation of amazing, intelligent people. And how much better will they do in the world if they're not suffering from the stuff that we're suffering from? It makes so much sense to focus our attention, A, on getting our bodies healthy, and then B, on making sure our children stay healthy or get to health if you're unfortunate enough to have a child that's already struggling. Yeah, I know, Pat. Yeah, it really does aggravate me that they're so focused on getting kids hooked early, but that's what they're doing. We need to teach our kids. Oh, we need to chain them in front of YouTube and force them to watch these videos. Well, these are over our kids' heads, or some of our kids' heads. But for those who could understand them, I definitely think watch them with your kids. Help your kids to understand as early as you can. And for the kids who are too young to understand what I'm saying, say it in words that they can get. They're not seen as treats. Indeed, we thought they were healthy. Yeah, for sure. I did think that. My daughter would be tired and cry when I said no. Okay. But other shoppers would be upset with her for crying instead of being upset with the market putting the junk food as kids' bait. I've been always a big fan of, I don't care what other people think about what's going on between me and my kid. And I've been in public situations with my daughter not being happy with me for whatever reason. And yeah, I don't care. Like, the truth of the matter is, me not doing what's best for her is me being a bad parent. And till this day, I will always do what's best for my children, my grandchildren, potentially at some point, my nieces and nephews. I always do what's best for them, not what is going to make my life easier, not what is going to make them happier if it's not good for them. I will always do what's best for them. Why? Because I love these children more than I care what any person anywhere will ever think of me. And that's just reality. Matter of fact, I love my entire family that much that I will never care what you think of me to the point where it's going to impact me doing the wrong thing with somebody from my family. At that point, you don't exist. You don't exist. So my family comes first. That's just a non-negotiable ever. My health comes first. You can complain about what I'm eating till the cows come home. I don't care. Any doctor can try to scare me with any kind of blah, blah, blah about I'm going to have blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Wellness warrior, you need to put it in your mind that, first of all, you had children, not because that person gave the kid to you. No, you had children because you chose to have children so that you could raise up this young person to be, first of all, positive in the world. How are they going to be positive in the world if they're sick all the time and struggling all the time? No. But also to be happy. How are they going to be happy in the world if they're struggling with sugar the same way that you struggled with sugar and their weight and their health and the da 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 da? You had children because you wanted to have a good time with them. How are you going to have a good time with them if, because of what they're eating or because of whatever scenario that's happening, that you're letting this person, that now they're not getting from you the best of you because you're worried about this person? Don't do it. Don't do it. You do what makes sense for your child because you had that child. You do what makes sense for your child because you love that child. And you do what's best for that child because when you're at home tonight, that person is not there and you're the one that has to deal with that child. So you always do what's best for your family. Always. That's a non-negotiable. And it bothers me that people allow other people's opinions to impact their lives in a way where they're not doing what's best for themselves and their own family. That bothers me. You can't even imagine. Because that person's not there later. None of those people are going to be there later when I eat the ice cream and then I'm crying at night because my hip hurts. None of you guys are going to be there. So honestly, in my opinion, shut up. Just shut up. I don't need to hear you. That's the answer. If you don't want to hear my kid cry in the store, this public space, put your fingers in your ears and then you won't hear my kid cry. She's allowed to cry. Very excited about this week. Remote work. Job wants us to avoid all DNC, potential issues in downtown Chicago. I'm not sure what DNC is. I will look it up after because I feel like you probably put DNC because you don't want me to say the words. Tightening things up with exercise routine to continue on next week. Congratulations on having some more home time to be able to work on your exercise routine. I feel like it's one of the things, like going back to what happens when we're back to work and back to school and the kids have homework and then we don't have time for that run to the gym that we were able to do because the kids didn't have homework. And we could take turns, I go to the gym or he goes to the gym because there's not the homework thing that we need to do. Oh, Democratic Convention. Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if there was something that, yeah. So yeah, like we for sure want to be able to have me time, right? And sometimes just traveling to work and back. I talked to one person the other day. Their travel to work and back was costing them 3 hours per day to work and back. That's too much. 3 hours per day. And that used to be my life, by the way, when I was working for the company and I had to work downtown. Yeah, I would be an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening. And that was why I pushed so hard to get out of that story, because That's too much of my day. I mean, I didn't do the math, but can you imagine just 3 hours a day on a 7 day? That's 21. That's almost a full day per week traveling. No, that's too much compared to my few minutes today. My mom did see Captain Crunch and Lucky Charms as treats. Okay. They were more expensive than cornflakes and grape nuts. Okay. So those were the healthier choices that you guys were having. That's very interesting, seeing it. I don't think here in Canada, the difference between the cereal price is not that disparate. Um, yeah, I can't say that the fun cereals are that much more. Actually, a lot of the time, the healthy choices, I guess maybe now today, because we're trying to be healthy more often, the healthy choices are a bit more expensive, but everything goes on special so regularly that you can get cereal at really, really reasonable prices. And Captain Crunch was very sweet. I do agree with you, Ian. Captain Crunch and Alphabets, to me, were two very, very, very sweet cereals that honestly, like, you could just buy them and like put them in a baggie and like that's a treat. Like seriously, like just eat that like chips, like kind of scenario. And in my mind, when I did that, I'm like, oh, this is a healthier version of her than giving her chips for school. Again, when we don't know the things we think we're doing to be healthier, because it's a breakfast cereal. Like, how was I supposed to know that that's just as bad, maybe even worse than chips? I don't know. I totally avoided buying candy, but stupidly bought them cereal because they said it was fortified with vitamins, and I believed it. I now think cereal is horrible. Big regrets. Um, I can't say I completely avoided buying candy. I did buy my daughter candy growing up, but just not a lot of it. But I did buy candy. Again, she didn't like it for the first few years, so that was easy. She didn't ask for it. But I think like once we got maybe midway through elementary school, she started wanting candy, but it wasn't a lot because again, this is the interesting thing about my daughter too, is that because I think honestly because of the way her beginning was, she'll ask me for stuff and then she'll eat like maybe I'll buy a bag of cookies, she'll eat a row and I'll end up eating throwing well, either eating them back when I was eating that stuff or throwing 3 rows of cookies away now today. So like even today I try to buy like whenever I buy things for her, I buy like either things I know she will eat. And then I tell her like you just go and get that yourself because like I can't be bothered with that. And my mom still buys cookies, so she can have cookies at my mom's place. But I feel like she's gotten better on some of these things. But the point I'm making is that even when before I understood it, like she would have one or two of something. It's almost like she got her full, her fill, her fix, and then she'd be fine, right? So like I do think the earlier you get introduced to these things and then the more out of control you are. So there's a combination of how early did you start having the really sweet things? Because we all have sweet. Like every one of us starts off on baby cereal and whatever. So we all had it. But it's like how early did you get the really sweet stuff? And then how long were you on it are the two big factors that I think play a huge role. So I'm still hopeful for her that she's gonna pay attention to what's happening and try to pull back a little bit, just just not be, yeah. In 2024, mom would have been arrested in public. None of that. Wait until you get home. Address it right then and there. No anything after that. She reacted. She reached out and touched. um yeah, no, I mean, again, I feel like that I definitely had. I was born back in 1972, so I definitely had a different parenting style as well. And again, parents from the Caribbean. Yeah, I wasn't risking bad behavior in public. I can tell you that for sure. Um, I do think my mom, though, my mom did have a more like don't test me attitude, which was interesting. And I didn't test her because I knew that I would fail the test. She would pass. So, but yeah. Oh my gosh, that's interesting. Let's see, Laura. Dr. Anthony Chaffee put out several videos on the bad or origins of cereal. One of the things that's unfortunate about all of these plant products that we're constantly eating, we only ever talk about the sugar content, but there's other things in them that are harming us. Like this whole gluten thing. We are not meant to eat gluten, even though most of us tolerate gluten. I hate that word tolerate because we don't understand that just because we're tolerating gluten doesn't mean that it's not internally doing things that we don't want it to do, because we shouldn't be eating it. So I feel like there's a lot of scenarios where we need to just get we need to put our mind around what's healthy to do and what's not. And we need to stop doing the unhealthy things and focus our attention on doing the healthy things, right? As if we do that, just that one thing, just saying, you know what? Yeah, I've now learned that cereal isn't healthy, so I'm not eating it. Why would I buy it for my kids? Right? That's a simple something, right? Just like if we just, especially when we have children that are too young to go to the store and get it themselves, right? If you have kids under the age of 5, you have a unique possibility here that you could just change what they're eating and help them be smarter and stronger than all of their classmates. Help them be the leading brain and body in their classroom. Like we have that possibility because you still have such a huge ability to control what they eat and help their body to get back to that healthy place where it's centered and feeling amazing and growing properly, building itself properly. So I definitely think any parent with a child under 5, this should be a no-brainer. You're doing it for yourself, you should be doing it for your kids. But then I would say like people that have, even up to teenagers, whatever we can get them to do, we get them to do, right? Like if we can get them even to just add more healthy foods. So instead of having cereal for breakfast, have eggs and bacon. Like that one change before you go off to school, what benefit is that doing for your brain to help you have a better day? So I would definitely encourage every single one of us to look at those possibilities. This looks like it's the last comment. So if anybody wants to say hello or goodbye to anybody else, I know there's probably some people in the background that maybe haven't been speaking as much. If you want to say hello or goodbye, this is your opportunity. But this is the last comment that I can see right now. We would sneak and eat Captain Crunch type cereals by the handfuls dry because it was like candy. Totally, totally did that. Do you think parents will get pushback from kids by changing the lunches come September? It depends on the age of the kid. I mean, honestly, kids under 5 eat what kids under 10 eat what their parents give them. To be fully honest, like you don't have an option. If you're 10 and under, you eat what your parents give you. But the kids 5 and under really they don't think about it. Kids 6 and up are more likely to think about and make requests, right? Like that's like I look at my kid. Like at 6 years old is when I started to get these requests. Like, oh, my friend had this for lunch and that for lunch. Can I have that too? Like she's talking about snacks because she never liked sandwiches, but she was talking about snacks. Like, oh, she had this for snack or that for snack. Can I have that too? So those requests started coming into me when she was 6, right? And her ability to manage no was fine. My daughter, again, she's a very honest. I have to say I'm very lucky. She for the most part, she was quite cooperative as a young person. So I didn't have like huge problems with that, and she was fine to have those things when she got home, right? So whether it was at my mom's or at my house, like as long like if she had it at home. So and my big thing again was like when she's at school that she's thinking clearly and properly and whatever. But I do think that yeah, our kids sneaking things, it's just and oh sorry, I'm on this comment. The thing about the pushback from the kid, I doubt it. I mean, I feel like if you have a good relationship with your children and your children know that you do what you do based on what's healthiest for them, they're going to understand. And this is all about, even if you get pushback from your kid, it's about talking to your children and helping your child understand why you're making the changes that you're making, right? I do think that most parents would do better in helping their kids understand when things change and not just either over catering to what we think they want or underestimating their ability to understand that the change would be good for them. Because I feel like those two things is what stops people from doing what's better for their children. It's like, oh, they're going to cry. It's normal to cry, right? I'm an adult and I still cry. It's normal to cry. So you're not going to not, your child is not going to never cry because you give them always what they want, right? As a matter of fact, they might cry more later if they're one of the unfortunate children that end up with some kind of metabolic scenario that requires doctor's intervention, right? And I think sometimes we don't think about that side of the coin, that in my effort to not bother you or see you cry or make you upset or whatever, I open the door that you're in a situation where, yeah, like your body doesn't manage and now you need medical intervention. I think crying a little bit is better than that. Thank you for your show, Violet. Maybe you can interview the means on your show, the means. I don't particularly know who they are, Laura. I don't know if, are you in the squad? I think you're in the squad, aren't you? If you're in the squad, if you want to send me a direct message with who they are, I think I can roll back and see that the comment you made. But if they have a particular channel or how to reach them, if you know how to do that, that'd be amazing. I appreciate it. As a matter of fact, anybody who has people that they think it would be cool for me to interview, you can jump into the Wellness Squad. The link is in the description. And you can jump into the Wellness Squad and send me a direct message with those kind of interesting people, because I definitely am looking for more people to do a few conversations with and push information forward and help people to, again, do better, interact more, and just learn and be able to have your children and your not just your children, but your life go better. I want your life to go better. So anything we can do to help that to happen, I'm definitely on board with. And thank you, Sing It. I do like the glasses. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to wear them and not have reflections, but I think I finally figured my lights out, and it didn't seem like it was too bad today. I'll be able to check better in the replay, but I don't see any reflections happening. So I'm really excited about it. Like even when I was facing this way, I didn't see any reflections happening. So I had been hesitant to wear them because anyways, I wasn't sure that it would play out well, but hey, so now I know I can. So next Monday, we are going to have another live stream at 11:20. I do them every Monday at 11:20. Thank you very much for confirming that for me. I do them every Monday at 11:20. Bring your questions. I answer all kinds of questions, as you saw today. It doesn't necessarily, I love it when it's on the topic, but it could be on other things too. And I'm looking for questions for Q&A that I'm going to be doing. So you can add some questions to the end of this video if you'd like. I'm really appreciating the conversation that we are having today, and I'll talk to you guys again in a week. Have a great rest of your day and eat healthy. Just do those 3 things. No cheat meals, solve your problems, and acknowledge sugar is the problem. Stay on track, Wellness Warriors. Let's eat healthy all week this week. Matter of fact, next week when you come in, I want you to come in with, I ate healthy all week, Violet. That's what I'm looking for. Talk to you next Monday.